So we actually now know what the pyramids are in principle. And this is roughly what I'm measuring on the pyramid. Normally, clay cannot penetrate stone. To me, it is like a magic box. I don't know what's inside of it, but I can see the output. It looks like it has been amplified. By the way, everybody can go out and do these measurements.
So, welcome, guys. Today we have the pleasure to have with us Jesper Johansson, physical researcher, independent, and a good friend. So, I thank you. Can I make a short introduction about you?
Of course. My name is Jesper Johansen. I'm from Denmark, and I am an independent physicist. And within the last 5 years, I also been looking at the pyramids, because some people might say that it is a quantum leap from quantum physics to pyramids. But the way I see it is that they are actually extremely closely related. The pyramids, in my belief, are built of with technology based on quantum physics. So this is what I'm doing. This is my research on how we can perhaps read off different quantum physics phenomena from the pyramids, and hopefully find out what the pyramids are and how they work.
How did you actually go from quantum physics to pyramids?
About 7, 8 years ago, I heard the rumor of this energy beam coming off the pyramid in Bosnia. And for me, that was only a rumor, but I've heard it around a couple of places. And in 2020, I simply just decided to take my equipment and go to Bosnia to see if I could measure this energy beam by myself, which I could. The first year during the lockdown in 2020, it was a very hard trip, and I didn't get much time down there to do measurements. And it also turned out that I didn't have the right equipment with me. So what I did, I came back over the next 5 years several times, and I simply just measured over and over, fine tuning my equipment and trying to understand what I was actually looking at. But fairly early in that process, during my trips down there, I stumbled about these rocks, simply the physical material that the pyramids are made of. And those showed very, very interesting signs to me, signs that I hadn't seen before. And that's actually where the rock story started. Because when I went into details looking at the rocks and so on, I very quickly discovered that they showed signs of cold fusion, and they showed signs that it looked like they had been soft like clay, and simply just squeezed together, pushed together like they were, yeah, soft like clay. And I had never seen rocks like that before. So of course that took my interest very, very fast. And over time, I established that something was clearly wrong. And I could see that these stones have been artificially affected. That means some kind of technology have been used upon the stones and the material used to build the pyramids. And today I have uh, discovered, or I have put down a process where we can actually see atomic alternation in the stones, showing very clearly that something has happened to these stones that are not natural. And I shared with you a folder with some pictures that we can try and go through if you want. It shows very natural conglomerate as we know it today. For anybody to know what conglomerate is, it is a mixture of natural stones and sedimentations. And so what we're looking at is normal stones that has been washed out to sea and has slowly built up this layer of sedimentation. And due to pressure and time, slowly it gets pushed into this stone mass, which we know today as conglomerate. This is very natural. There's nothing special about this. And if you take picture number 2, we can see a cut view of this, and it very clearly shows all the stones look lying next to each other with this sedimentation in between. So none of the stones are really touching each other. You have this fine sand in between that has been pushed together by time and force. This is what we expect to see when we look at conglomerate. But as the next picture shows, picture number 3, which is a cut view of a piece of conglomerate taken from the tunnels, the Rafna tunnels underneath the pyramids and close to the pyramids. Here we see something completely different. These stones are not only touching each other, these stones have been pushed together. They are completely compressed against each other, and you see the lines in between. And in those lines, we actually also find clay. So this, to me, does not look like natural conglomerate. It looks like everything else than that, actually. So far, nobody has really been able to give me a good explanation on how this can occur naturally. And therefore, given all the other circumstances and signs I see in the rocks, to me, this is artificial. And just because I think it's artificial doesn't mean it is. So it means I have to be able to prove it, to actually show that something is going on here. And throughout different stones, I have literally hundreds of these stones. And I've only chosen a few here this evening, so you can see examples of what I'm trying to express. The next picture is a picture of a granite stone. This is actually black granite stone. It's among the hardest stones we know. And what makes it special is that we see limestones completely embedded in it. The limestone right in the middle of the picture, when we zoom in, there are two, one up and one down. The one up we see has been broken off, but if you see the edges around the limestone, it's very clear to see that the edges of the granite stone has come up around it. It's like it has been pushed in to the granite stone, and the stone has given away as if it was soft. And this is a case of both all the stones, the smaller stones sitting there, but what you're looking at now, right there, is black granite stone coming up around a limestone. And to me, that shows very precise that the granite stone must have been soft, because it should normally be completely impossible to embed a limestone within a granite stone. And on the next picture, you see another granite stone, and up in top of the top of the picture, besides other stones being embedded in the surface, right there in the top, you see what looks like a crater. Now, like another stone had been sitting there, maybe a limestone that has then later on eroded away, but no matter what, another object has penetrated the stone and leaving a crater hole. And the only way you can obtain that surface really and obtain that hole is if that material is soft and gives away for whatever object is penetrating the surface. So to me, this is very clear that this stone must have been soft at some point. And stones and granite especially just doesn't get soft like that. This needs to be some kind of technology for me. This is not something that happens in a fault line that some geologists claim they do. I have never seen anything like this, and just thinking logical, it looks like that stone has been soft. We have multiple of these examples. On the next picture, you see the first granite stone again, and here you can clearly see in the right side of the stone how much material has been pushed into the surface. And on the left side of the stone, you see these small dots, these small droplets. Yeah, exactly. Those small droplets are actually made of crystallized iron and calcium. And nobody so far has been able to tell me what they are and how they got there. So when you have small crystallized droplets containing about 80 to 90% iron and 10 to 20% calcium on the surface of a stone, which holds embedded limestones, then to me that is a very strong signal that something has happened to this stone that was not natural. Then, and if it's not natural, then it must have been some kind of technology that was used upon the stone. This is a picture of two stones that have been fused together. You see the line in the middle. And I asked a geologist in Czech Republic that was actually willing to speak to me about this matter, because not many geologists are really willing to speak to me about these stones. But this man in Czech Republic were, and I asked him if he had any idea on how two such stones could have been fused together. And his only explanation was extremely high pressure and hot water. And I asked him a little more thoroughly about this, and he explained to me that it could have happened in a fault line, meaning a very deep line in the tectonic plates, where stones can actually fall down and be exhibit to this high pressure. And over time, with heat and pressure, these stones would slowly fuse together. And him being a geologist, I had to believe his words. So I asked him, the surface in between the two stones, is that expected to be clean, or could there be anything else in between? And he said, no, this surface should be clean. Due to water and high pressure, it should have all been washed away and washed out between the stones. So you would have a very distinct, clean surface in between the stones. If we jump to the next picture, I therefore cut this stone in half. And we see the line in between these two stones, very distinguished all the way from left to right. And we can see how the stones have been perfectly merged together. I mean, there is no air gaps, there's no nothing in between. These stones have been fused or merged together completely perfect without breaking. It's like they have been soft and just slowly pushed together. But if you look at the left side of this line, you see it's light. There's some light elements in between. That is actually clay. We find clay in between the stones. And according to the geologist himself, this should be impossible. You cannot have clay in between such two fused stones if this has happened in a fault line. So my question is, how does clay come in between these fused stones? To that, he had absolutely no answer. I therefore had another stone. This is on the next picture. This stone here is halfly a black granite stone, and the other half is another type of metamorphical rock. But it is two different pieces of stone that has been fused together. Again, he said this has happened in a fault line under huge pressure and among hot water. There is two crystallines here, one in the left side, going through both the stones, and there's also one smaller one in the right side. We see this on the next picture, but we can see how they go through both the stones. And when I asked him about this type of fusion, again, he explained me the pressure, the temperature, but could not explain how the crystalline would then appear through both stones. And I asked him if he could break them apart, simply using a hammer and trying to break these two stones apart. And when he did, on the next picture, please, we saw clay. Also on the pieces of the granite stone, which I actually hold here in my hand, we also see the clay present on the other side of that stone. These are the pieces that came out of that stone, and in there we see clay. This is evident in all the stones around, that this clay is in between all the fused stones. And it's actually even in the stones, because when we break this stone apart a bit more, we can even see how the clay has actually penetrated the atomic structure of the stone. Normally, clay cannot penetrate stone, so something has happened to this. And on this picture, in the left side, we can actually see a pattern in the clay. If we zoom in a little bit, up in the left corner there, you can see a pattern. This is a mineralization pattern, also known as a dendrite pattern. And again, there is no explanation whatsoever on how this could occur naturally. Technologically, I have an idea, because this is also an expression of force, electromagnetic force, and I should say other gravitational forces perhaps. But to me, it really clearly shows that these stones are not natural. They must have been affected with some kind of technology, for us, still unknown technology, but yet a technology. And using the perspective of quantum physics, and here I am talking about quantum, subquantum kinetics and transmuting wave theory, we can actually come up with a very good idea on how this might have occurred. We have phenomena as the Hutchinson effect, that shows resonance phenomena on how we can actually vibrate atomic material from each other. Atomic material, this is everything, really. We can vibrate atoms from each other. We can break down the bonds between them and jellificate metal and other stuff. If this holds up, and the structure of a subatomic particle is truly transmuting, then we can actually explain how these stones have alternated atomic structure as a result of a resonant technology based on resonant physics. This is, of course, my main work here, but all the different stones show different signs. And therefore, I have spent a lot of time over the last 5 years to actually study the different types of stone and how they react differently. On the next picture, we see another type of stone that leaves another pattern and another structure. Because here we actually see what used to be a normal stone. But this stone has been alternated so much that this crystalline structure, as we see here, slowly emerges within the stone. It simply grows from within the stone when the atomic structure of the stone changes. It means that the atoms start aligning, probably as an effect of the magnetic field they were exposed to. And by time, the rest of the stone erodes away very slowly as fine grains of sand. On the next picture, we see a cut view of this, on how the stone changes structure from within. And in this picture, we see all the small lines from this crystalline structure. Oh, sorry, please go back one. We see here in a cut view all the lines in the stones, but we see other material in there. You see the color of the lines, it's reddish. That's because it contains calcium and iron. Now, the iron also comes from the clay, but we find atomically hardened clay in all these crystal lines. And we see how the clay actually penetrates the atomic structure of the stone. And this is a process, an ongoing process. So we see some stones being affected more than others. And we see all the different stones act differently according to what type of stone it is. When this process here gets more progressed and the stone slowly starts to erode away, it leaves behind this crystalline structure. This is on the next picture. And this is what I refer to as more or less the byproduct, because this used to be a normal stone, but now there's nothing more left of it than a crystal structure coated with this fine clay, this fine layer of clay. You cannot from there see its crystal, but if we go down in the bottom of the picture, we can see how it's broken and we can see the edges of the lines. And there we can actually see this is quartz crystal. This is like a honeycomb structure of quartz crystal covered with clay, atomically hardened clay. And there is no explanation given to me on how this can be natural. I know this structure is known and it also has a name in geological terms. Unfortunately, I don't know, I can't remember the name right now. So this structure is actually known. It's very rare. And there's again no explanation on how it comes about, how this structure is being naturally produced. But what we can say, since we cut this sample, on the next picture, we see the cut view of this. And in the middle, we have normal stone. We still have solid stone structure in the middle of this sample. In all the holes that are gone, they're empty. This material has eroded away, but we also see it in its middle stages. If we look closely in certain areas, in the left side, for example, we see how it starts to simply erode away and turn into fine grains of sand. And I have multiple pieces of these stones now, and they all show the same characteristics, that they used to be normal stones at one point, and at some point, this crystalline structure started to emerge within the stones. And the more it emerged, the more the stone erodes away and turns into sand. I actually have samples like this where I can pour loose sands out of the sample. It's simply just coming out from me shaking the sample of the stone, leaving this crystalline structure behind. But there's no explanation on how this should occur naturally, and especially not how the clay fuses to the surface of the crystal. This is, to me, all questions for physics. This is a physical question. How do we get a bonding between calcium and this crystalline structure. How does this crystalline structure emerge? And why does stone all of a sudden start to erode? Because to my knowledge, stone does not erode. But in these cases, they clearly do. And like I said, I have multiple of these samples showing all the same signs. So at some point, to me, this is clear that some kind of unknown technology must be at play here. On the last picture is a picture that I have used earlier on, and it shows one stone being cut, but it is really two stones, and it is to be considered a geopolymer because it has been acknowledged that this stone is no longer in its natural state. So they had to call it a geopolymer. And there's a lot of discussions about what a geopolymer is. But looking close to this, we can see that these two stones have dissolved and fused somehow. And the yellow crystal lines that we see go through both the gray and the red stone is very significant because nobody can tell me how this came about. In the top, if you go up, straight up a little bit from there, we can even see on the top there, right there on the surface, there's something sticking out. There's a little pin or something sticking out of the stones. That is the stone itself that has begun to change atomic structure, that it has started to disintegrate. And we see some of the stones that has actually completely disintegrated because they have been affected so hard that they, on an atomic scale, no longer, they're not soft, they're not jellificated, but they're vibrated so hard that the atomic bonding breaks down and they start to disintegrate completely, as we see in this example. As I said, every stone is reacting differently. And when we look at the limestone, which I have spent a lot of time on, and these stones are very visible down in the tunnels. So we have thousands of these examples with the limestones. And I would like to show a couple of examples here. If you take the first picture, these limestones react fairly differently in comparison to all the other stones. They seem to hollow out. They seem to create a crystallized shell, like an eggshell. They crystallize in the surface, but the interior of the stone simply loses integrity, strength, and polarizes. So in the end, they hollow out from within. And here on this picture, we see one of these stones that has been broken open. It was found like this. And we see this very clear surface, this shell around in the surface. And we have lots of pebbles and so on from the concrete still stuck into this crystallized surface. And we see the interior looking like sand. And when you put your finger to it or a small needle or something, it just scrapes out. You can scrape it out very softly. And up in the top of the picture, we can actually also see a place where it has completely disappeared. So right in the middle now, you see not the stone, but you see a small bridge actually of the pebbles on the far side of the stone. And that means the pebbles on the surface of the stone creates their own layer. They are stuck together as well in this crystallized shape. But the limestone erodes away like sand. And this is really another good example of how different stones react. And if we take the next picture, which shows two different stones stuck together, with this sedimentation in between. On the left, we see one of these limestones, and we see how the interior of the stone has more or less completely disintegrated. It is very light, soft, crystal shaped, and you have the shell around. So it more or less looks like an egg now. But the stone on the right looks like a perfect normal stone. Nothing has happened to this stone. So why this change? To me, it is a clear sign that a frequency-based technology was used for this purpose. So this was a little overview of the stones and the work I've done regarding in putting a process or categories to the stones and the physical material we see. Besides that, I have to say that I see very, very strong links to quantum physics through these signs, these physical signs and characteristics in these stones. So therefore, to me, it is very strong supporting evidence that the pyramids were truly built using a resonant technology based on transmuting wave theories.
Maybe how they can they can create this electromagnetic energy to do the Hutchinson effect.
Yeah, here we have to distinguish between the technology used to build the pyramids and the purpose of the pyramid. The purpose of the pyramid must be, in my mind, based on the same technology, based on the same approach to physics. But we can say that some kind of Hutchinson effect or a phenomenon that looks like the Hutchinson effect were most likely used to levitate this material, fuse it, and actually, yes, build the pyramids. Because a part of this is levitation. This is anti-gravity technology as well. Once we start to play around with force, atomic force, electromagnetic force, you will also affect gravity. From the discovery of Thomas Townsend Brown, we know about electrogravitics, and we know that there is a link between electromagnetism and gravity. We know we can affect electromagnetic forces so hard that they start to show off gravitational effects. And this is known as electrogravitics, and this has been known about for roughly 100 years. It was discovered in the early 1920s. So this is not news, really. But nobody really wants to speak about it.
What can you say about your measurement?
My measurements. See, this is actually why I came to Bosnia, because I try to specialize, or my special interest is within electromagnetic force. So measuring the energy on the pyramid is very exciting to me because this is directly linked to quantum physics seen from my perspective. So reading off the different phenomena, the energy field around the pyramid tells me quite a lot about quantum physics actually, and how the pyramids are linked to, quantum physics and not particle physics. How we need to change our perception of the pyramids to actually see what is going on. It took me a few years to actually get it right. It took me a few years to adapt and fine tune my equipment. But when I finally did, I didn't see what I expected. And now I think it's the time to clear up a little perhaps misunderstanding. If we take the first picture of the measurements, we see the signal as I measure it on top of the pyramid. This picture here needs a little explanation, so we actually know what we're looking at. What I very basically did was to build an antenna, especially for this purpose, to pick up the signals from the pyramid as good as I could. And when I came down there, and this is fairly important actually, because I also trust in other people, and we should do so, but we need to do our own research. This is extremely important. When I came down there, I was told, and I heard the rumors about this energy beam and the frequency of 28 kilohertz. So of course, okay, I'm looking for a 28 kilohertz signal. This was what I was trying to find. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it. And that stumbled, I was a little stunned about this, and I thought there was something wrong with my equipment. I was doing something wrong. Clearly, I was doubting in myself because 28 kilohertz, this was established. But what I came to learn was that the 28 kilohertz signal has been measured in different ways, and it has actually been measured in mechanical ways. This is ultrasound. So when we're talking about the energy beam being of 28 kilohertz, we need to realize that this is a mechanical sound wave. This is not a electromagnetic wave. And this we need to distinguish between. Because I kept measuring something else. I measured mostly a frequency that were roughly 3-4 times higher than that, and one a little bit lower, but not too far from 28 kilohertz. So what this picture here shows, the yellow line in between, in the front, in the middle, that's my control signal. This is a signal that I generate in a signal generator. At the moment, it is adjusted to 133 kilohertz. And I control this so I can change it as I want to. But it fits the background. It fits the signal giving off the pyramid. So the yellow line in between is really the true signal of 133 kilohertz. But you also see a bigger wave. You see a much longer wave over the screen. And this wave is actually down to about 23 kilohertz, very close to the 28 kilohertz signal that was measured earlier on. And it took me a while to actually realize that the pyramids are sending out several different signals, actually quite a lot. But these two signals are the main signals. And it was only the low signal of 28 kilohertz that was really discovered at that point. The high signal wasn't discovered. And I know today why actually they didn't discover it, because their equipment that they used were not calibrated for this area. It was actually only calibrated from 20 to 40 kilohertz. So they missed out the high signal of 133 kilohertz. But these two signals sway. So at some point, yes, I too will pick up a 28 kilohertz signal, but at other times I pick up 22, 23, 25. It sways, and so does the high one. It also sways from roughly 98 to 100 kilohertz and up to 135 kilohertz, depending on what time of the day, of the year, moon cycle, and so on. These signals keep changing. So this I have established very firmly by now by repeating the measurements over and over, that they stay fairly much the same. They stay within a range, but they sway within the band or the range of 20 kilohertz, 20 to 30 kilohertz, and 100 to 135 kilohertz. They also sway in amplitude, means in voltage. So the strength of the signal also varies. And this is at the moment my ongoing work. I am trying to establish how they sway, why they sway like this, and what kind of factors that affects the pyramids. Um, but for now, we also found something else. And here comes the important part. Because if we take picture number 2, if we go on one picture, we also see 50 hertz. This signal here is 50 hertz. So this is not measured in kilohertz. This is only 50 hertz. Now, my yellow line is the one I produce, and the red line is the one that is the antenna is picking up. This measurement was done on the excavation side, on the north side of the pyramid of the sun, down by the excavation. This is measured very close to the city, at the bottom of the pyramid, not complete bottom of the pyramid, but very close to the city. So when I see the signal, it is clear that the 50 hertz comes off the power grid. Most people know today, hopefully, that our power grid runs on 50 hertz. And all our wires, the entire power grid sends out this signal. And a signal like this will always be the strongest, closest to the source. And the further away removed from the source, the weaker the signal should be. And in the end, it should completely disappear. So for me, measuring this signal here close to the city and all the wires and the power grid is completely normal to me. There's nothing special about this. And here we have a signal strength of about 25 millivolts. The scale we can see down in the left bottom of the screen should be 10 millivolts. In the red, that is 10 millivolts division. And if we look up again in the middle of the screen, we can see the signal take up a roughly 2.5 square. This means it is roughly 25 millivolts in strength. And when we move away from the power grid, and this signal should simply just come down, get smaller, and disappear. There is no power grid up on top of the pyramid. There's no power lines up there. There's nothing at all. So we should not be able to measure 50 hertz up there. And as I walk up along the pyramid, we should see this signal disappear. And there should be absolutely nothing on top of the pyramid. There should only be the signals produced by the pyramids, if they produce any, which we have established. So I took my antenna, I walked up the pyramid of the sun, and I walked up about 90 meters from this point here, and I did my next measurement. And this is on the next picture. There again, we still have our 50 hertz in the front in the yellow line. And as you can see, the clear signal has now disappeared. There is more or less nothing. We're in a scale of 2 millivolts now. So we needed to zoom in to actually see some noise, see something, because there was no more 50 hertz. After that, we moved up additionally 90 meters. And up there on the next picture, there was still nothing. I could see something. I could see some frequency starting to be generated, produced there. But this is not, for the moment, really important, because the important thing is there were no 50 hertz. We were able to measure the 50 hertz at the bottom of the pyramid, very close to the city and the power grid. And as we moved up along the pyramid, that signal disappeared. When we came up to the top of the pyramid and we entered the field, all of a sudden it became a little different. If we take the next picture, we can see our 50 hertz is back, but it doesn't look the same. It looks like it has been enhanced. It looks like it has been amplified. There's a lot more to this signal, and you see there's a lot more of the red. It's much thicker. It means that all the higher frequencies are also being amplified. Now, this raises a question. How does this 50 hertz signal reach the top? Because according to conventional physics, the signal should be weaker the further away we go from the source. And we saw that when we walked up the pyramid, that the signal was disappearing and there was no more 50 hertz measurable from the power grid. But now it's back, and actually in an enhanced version. If we take the next picture, we see a comparison from the bottom to the top. The bottom of the screen is what I measured at the bottom of the pyramid, and what is on top is from the top of the field on the pyramid. Now here it's clear to see that this signal has been amplified. This signal has been enhanced. And even if we use a higher resistance on the probe, now the probe that I'm using to measure this with has a resistance of 1 mega ohm. If we switch that with a little switch I have on the probe to 10 mega ohm, so we increase the resistance and we therefore decrease the signal going through. If we take the next picture, it will show you this, what we call noise cancelling, where you clearly see that the measurement at the bottom is now just a one thin line, and the line in the top, measured at the top of the pyramid, is much, much stronger. This tells me that the pyramid is acting like an electromagnetic coupled oscillator to the planet. Because if we view this from a little higher perspective, the frequencies given off the planet, we have the Schumann resonance and basically other frequencies coming off the power grid. It could be anything from a truck driving on the road, all these different signals, even up to our cell phone signals that surrounds the pyramids. It seems that the pyramids are taking in all these signals, all this energy, and swirls it around and actually concentrating it in the top of the pyramid. And this is the basic principle of a coupled oscillator. Now, to explain that in a little more depth, the principle of a coupled oscillator is if you have a big vibrating or pulsating body, and you thereon place a smaller object that will therefore resonate with that object. So if we zoom out and we say we have the Earth and it's pulsating, it's vibrating, and we build a small pyramid, putting it on the surface, that pyramid, if you build it correctly, it will resonate with the planet. And this is what we see here. We see that the 50 hertz and all the other signals are being amplified up through the pyramids, leaving in the top as a combined signal. The 50 hertz is not natural. We know that. It is being produced from our power grid. So therefore, I use this signal to show the strength at the bottom and the enhanced signal at the top, the concentrated signal at the top. And this shows extremely clear that the pyramid works as an electromagnetic coupled oscillator to the planet. So we actually now know what the pyramids are in principle. Now, this is very important. This is a principle. This is a physical principle. And just because we have figured out the physical principle of the pyramid, the working principle of the pyramid, doesn't mean we know what it was used for or how it was used. We only know the physical principle of the working method behind the pyramid. But this concludes that the pyramids were built for the purpose of technology. And if they were built with a purpose of technology, they had to be built with technology, with using technology. So we now actually know what the pyramids are in principle.
And for now, maybe in the future, we can understand better.
Of course, we have a giant work ahead of us, but the signals given off the pyramids, we don't know how they're being produced. Now, the low signal, 20 to 30 kilohertz, and the high signal of 100 to 130 kilohertz, we don't know how they're being produced. And we haven't been inside the pyramid. We don't know what's inside of it. Now, we figured out the working principle of the pyramid as a coupled oscillator, but we don't know what chambers are in there, what shafts, what kind of structures that might be in there. But we can see that there are something. And that something, what I refer to as the magic box, because to me, it is like a magic box. I don't know what's inside of it, but I can see the output. And the output is two different signals, very distinct signals among all the other signals that the pyramids are amplifying. But these two signals are being produced somehow. And it is my belief that it is on the base of the Schumann resonance within the planet.
Powerful, powerful. We forgot to show this one. Was the first picture I was ready?
Yes,
Mr.
I'm
Johnson.
sorry. Yes, this is my little. This is a little sketch I made showing my intention of the shape of the field. Now we should try and visualize a swirling field up around the pyramid, leaving as a signal in the top. And why do I believe it looks like that? Because when I look at a pyramid-shaped magnet under a magnetic supercell, this is actually what we see. When we view magnets under a magnetic supercell, we can see the magnetic lines. When we then shape a magnet into a pyramid, we can see how we distort the field, changing and pushing the plane of inertia all the way down to the bottom and concentrating the field in one end. And this is roughly what I'm measuring on the pyramid. So what I'm measuring on the pyramid, when I move around on the sides, up and down, and so on, I am measuring sort of the same as I see when I look at a pyramid-shaped magnet under a magnetic supercell. So this is my intuition. This is my idea on how we should actually look at the energy surrounding the pyramids. And this, by the way, also very clearly shows that if you have 50 hertz next to the pyramid, this frequency will also be taken in and concentrated up through the pyramid. So this only proves the principle of the pyramid, that they are here for a purpose of technology and they have been built with technology. This is the only explanation on these measurements. And everybody, by the way, everybody can go out and do these measurements. It is not very hard. You need a laptop, a oscilloscope, and an antenna. And the antenna could just be a piece of thick wire, actually. I used that to begin with. I didn't have an antenna that fitted my suitcase, so I just wrapped up some thick wiring and used that as an antenna. And this is really all you need to actually measure and show the principle of a coupled oscillator to the planet. And this we will do in the future, also on different pyramids around the world, or proclaimed pyramids. Because using this method, we should actually be able to verify whether a proclaimed pyramid truly is a pyramid or it is just a pyramid-shaped mountain.
In fact, you have invented the pyramidology,
Yes.
and you are the first pyramid hunter in the world.
It was, yeah. It's weird to think of, but the way I look at it is that I stumbled upon the electromagnetic fingerprint of the pyramid, because I can now determine very quickly whether we're talking about a pyramid or not. It's very easy to actually do the measurement on the top, see, do we have these signals? Do we have this energy field? Can we establish whether there is a field or not? Go down the bottom, measure if we have any power grid near the pyramid, then we can measure the 50 hertz at the bottom, and we go back to the top, and we measure it again. And if we see a stronger signal up there than at the bottom, then we have a coupled oscillator to the planet. So yeah, it's I guess you can say that I developed the method to actually establish whether it is a pyramid or not, or reading off the electromagnetic signals from the pyramid.
And I can't wait to come with you and take some measurement and discover some pyramids, but also
Thank
to
you.
spread with the people the knowledge to recognize some pyramids, and
Hmm.
also other hill that are interesting energetically, because not only the pyramid shape can influence in the energy, but we see together tumulus,
Yes.
we see stone sphere, and maybe there is something also forgotten in this situation.
There are, without a doubt, a lot that has been forgotten. I will, in 2026, here next year, I will be going to Sweden. Actually, there is a tumulus in Sweden, and I will go up there to do measurements on that, and to see if we have any signals. I will go to France in the early spring, and I will go to Italy during the year to do the same thing and to see whether we can succeed in actually measuring these signals on the different tops.
So surely we keep in touch in the future. We have some
Mm.
news to the project. And
Mhm.
before ending, I have one ethic question. Seeing what pyramids do, could be a problem electrify building a city near this structure. So maybe the structure can amplify our waves, some frequency that is not real to the planet, or
Mhm.
not, in your opinion.
That is hard to say, actually, but we do disturb the pyramids. That I can say. The pyramids were not built for our kind of technology. Um, of course, how they work, we don't know. They were probably applied something more, just like you apply gasoline to your car. There were probably applied something to the pyramids. I don't know, but no matter what, it is a machine made to unify, or to how should I put this, to optimize energetic flow. So with all our different frequencies, yes, we are disturbing the pyramids. We're disturbing the flow of energy, but it seems that uh, the pyramids are just amplifying whatever is around them. Whatever is around them will be amplified up through the pyramid and leave as a signal in the top. And this is worth considering in the future.
Thank you. So, Jesper, as physics, you have some idea that where this energy come from?
Well, this is always one thing we need to have as probably the most important question: the source of the energy for the pyramids. I can't disclose too much at this moment, but what I can say is yes, we're working on it. It is a cheap answer saying that the energy comes from the planet. That is a very cheap answer. So of course we should be able to come up with an explanation for this energy, for the source of the energy, and we are actually working on this. We do have some ideas on how this perhaps can function, but since we don't have the full data, we don't have all the data and the evidence yet, then I cannot disclose too much. But I can say we're working on exactly that question.
I will ask you a personal question for my curiosity. You believe in the existence of ether or someone called chi, prana, or something like that?
Yes, very plain. Yes, because without making a long story out of this, physics is about matter and force. And particle physics only look at matter. They don't look at force. They have no explanation for what force is. And when I look at quantum physics and I look at subquantum kinetics and other theories, the only possible explanation is yes, there is an ether. And this is my whole perspective. To put it as simple as I can, normally, particle physics and so on, we are claiming that a subatomic particle known as an electron, proton, or a neutron is a stable and static object. And this makes no sense at all. This makes no sense. But when we flip the coin and we say that the subatomic particle is stable and transmuting, then we're all of a sudden saying that a subatomic particle is a standing wave in the ether. Now, the ether is just a name. There's many names for it, but we have to realize that we are at a point in science that actually tells us that the world is multidimensional. And yes, there is an ether, if you wish to call it that. Tesla called it the ether. It is a commonly known expression, very old, and it was more or less taken out of history after Einstein came around. So, yes, I'm a very big believer in the ether because this is truly the only explanation for what we perceive as reality. My name is Jesper Johansen. I'm from Denmark, and I am an independent physicist. I run my own company with a normal job, and I do my research in physics independently and self-funding besides that. And I have been doing that for the past around 10 years, and I have been doing my own studies for the past 25 years within physics. So I'm actually very proud to say that I am an independent physicist that has not gone the classic way, but has spent more than 25 years on doing my own independent studies within everything from quantum physics to astrophysics. So I don't have a university degree. I chose that not to get it because I knew at that point I wasn't allowed to do what I truly wanted to do, and that is working with transmuting wave theory. And I knew at that point there was something wrong, that the universities would not allow what I would like to study. So I kept on with another very normal education and kept doing my own studies. So I never really stopped studying physics. I just moved on completely independently. And by the time I was 30, I knew I wanted to do experimental research. I wanted to do my own research. So I decided to simply start up my own company, make my own money, and fund my own research. And this is what I've been doing for the past nearly 10 years now.
So guys, as you know, independent research needs money, needs energy, it needs help, it needs earth, it needs soul. In the description of this video, you can find all the ways to stay in contact and support Jesper, me, and our collaboration and our research. Thank you very much, Jesper, and congratulations for your measurements and your work. I truly think this research could change how we understand our planet, our universe, and physics, not only the pyramid. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for showing the interest and letting me speak here today. Thank you so much.